Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week.
We'd love to have you here.
And we are very fortunate to have Dr. Nicola Amadora back with us this week again. And she is an international spiritual teacher, psychologist, Hakomi and trauma therapist, woman leader, author, and speaker. She dedicates her work to the awakening of all beings and to compassionate action on our planet. With elegance and depth, she passionately supports people to live from presence, connection, and wholeheartedness in the world. And today we're really excited. She's got a new book out, Love Unleashed, How to Rise in a World on the Edge. And so we're going to talk to her about her new book. So welcome back, Dr. Nicola.
Thank you so much for having me and everybody who's listening. And here's the book. You see the cover? You should actually get it. I should send you one.
We'd like
And
that.
so, yeah, we'd love that. So can you tell us a little bit about the book, how the book came to be?
Yeah, I mean, there is a whole story with it. And of course, the book is full of stories. So it's not the kind of, it's a very spiritual book, but it's grounded and it has so many stories, because I think sometimes that just these conceptual books, they get kind of boring. And I wanted to have real life adventure stories where you just feel like, okay, I can't wait to read the next page.
Or go experience it or whatever.
Yeah.
You had that.
Yeah. Because it's kind of it is an adventure to be on a spiritual journey, and life itself is already an adventure. And for me, I'm a writer since I was born. I think I was born with a pen in my hand, basically.
Him too.
Yeah, and I feel often, all I want to do is write, but my life has been so full on that I have a daughter too, and I'm mothering many people. So I haven't had the space to write a book. I've always written stuff and then I put it in the closet. And at some point, it was on Mount Shasta, actually, in California. I don't know if you know this mountain. It's a very special mountain there.
No, I've never heard of it before.
Yeah, you should look it up. It's
What's it called again?
Mount Shasta. And it's Shasta, and it is like, well, they say where the holy ones walk. So
Okay.
I used to go there every year to just for a silent retreat for myself into nature, into the wild. And one night I sat in this campground and it was completely still and it was just stars everywhere and so magnificent and beautiful. And also there are many wild animals still there. Unlike in Europe where they shot them all in their and that area is still very vibrantly alive. And so I sit there all alone in this campground. Nobody was there, with my little candle on this wooden table. I'm pondering, I'm asking the question, how can I be of greater service given what's going on in the world? I think a lot of people these days ask themselves that, seeing what we're going through and what's happening on our planet and also in people's lives. So even though I was already teaching and doing many service-oriented work, I could feel there was something more that needed to happen that really could reach many more people. And suddenly I heard a voice, of course, the inside voice, the inner, heart voice, soul voice, right for all of life, right about love, and a way how we can actually turn the tide. And so as I sat there, I was like, well, I don't know, I could write tons of books on it and I don't have time. And I needed a little confirmation, I said. And so suddenly I could feel, I heard behind me footsteps. And something in me told me not to turn around. And even though that can be scary because you don't know who and what's coming, I was left in suspense. I was sitting on the bench and I was like, I don't know if that's good or bad, but I really want to turn around right now. Luckily, I didn't. Suddenly, I felt something really wet on my shoulder. And then there was this soft blow that I could feel from my nose. And I could feel it's not human. And I just was very quiet. And then it was like, it was literally touching me. And then I turned around when this being walked away. And I saw it was a grown stag, beautiful deer stag, a male one. And
Wow.
I just felt like the shivers on my body, and I felt like, oh my God, this was a confirmation, literally, from the divine through the stag. Because when does a stag come and touch you? I mean,
Never.
never. And it has never happened again, but it happened in that moment. And exactly in that moment, I knew, okay, I couldn't get a more clearer sign to write. And then I began. I had, I had scrap paper with me and I had toilet paper. And I started writing and I wrote and I couldn't stop anymore. And I wrote until I had, I mean, not just on Manchester, also at home. It was like something gripped me. And I I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning at night. And I'm a kind of writer that I need to write things first on paper by hand. I know that's not very ecological, but
There's something about pen to paper though.
yes.
Yes,
That
as magical as
I
it
think
is.
it gets that creativity out there. And I'm very much the same way. I love technology and writing on the computer, but I love to write pen to paper.
Yeah,
I
and there's
think
nothing
this,
like the feeling of paper. Yeah.
yeah, but there is something that I think is inherent in the soul. And as a woman in particular, if you want to be embodied, there's something that comes through our hands, through the touch, that is much more alive than when I stare at a screen. It's like the pen moves, the paper has a feel to it. And somehow then my soul just started, I kept writing and I ended up with 800 pages.
That's a few.
Somebody said you need to put it in 4 books, and I was like, no, it belongs in 1 book, but I had to cut it down, and that I think was the hardest part.
It
And
must have been fun for you to write it on your experiences and then going through all those experiences again, sort of thing
yeah,
that you were writing about. So probably doing that, you were getting another feeling with it at the same time. So it was probably quite a joy for you, was it?
oh, I was addicted. I mean,
Yeah.
tell you what, I couldn't even do anything else anymore. Whenever my work was done, I just wanted to go to my book. I didn't want to go out anymore. I didn't want to do nothing. I was walking around literally with a lover. And that's how the book and I felt together. Even when I had times when I was fed up with the book. In relationships, at some point you fed up with each other. It just happens to the best, right?
Yeah.
So with a book, you can put the book under the bed or in the closet. You can't put your partner or friend in the closet, in bed, even though you wish maybe. Problem was my book had a voice. It started communicating to me at night. It was so annoying. It was always saying, take me out, write on, take me out. And it just wouldn't leave me alone. I kept waking up. It was like a being unto itself.
Well,
And I felt like I was birthing, like I'm, into the world, this book. And so I had to pick it up again. And it was relentless. The book itself was relentless with me. And I finally, I just was like, okay, I'm just gonna surrender. You know, at some point you just surrender to any relationship when it's a deep calling.
Mhm.
And so for me, this book it was a deep calling, and I think I just wove a lot of stories into it and a lot of wisdom teachings that I feel I've walked or I walk in my life. So it's, and you get an embodied sense, something real is here. And then I felt also it needs some practices that people can use. So what, you know, because the theme love is anyway so big, and I didn't want to name the book anything with love because I thought, not again a love book. I mean, how many do we have?
Yeah, but I think it's an important message because I feel like a lot of people are stuck right now with the way the world is and are trying to find out how to rise up. So I think that's great that you've written about this and that you've given some practices that people can do to try to be able to rise up.
Yeah.
That's it in the word, yeah, what you just said, to rise in a world on the edge. And I could feel, you know, the title really had to be Love Unleashed, because it has power in it.
Yes.
It's not the kind of like, oh, we're just hanging around, we're all love, and we, you know, we're swimming in the same soup, and it's kind of like this mushness that often is conveyed with love. It's not that. It's like it's so much more powerful, and I feel like that's what we need right now to turn the tide in our lives and in this world, because we're so on the edge. And it's one thing to know, oh yeah, all we need is love, but what is it? You know, how do you live it? How do you experience it? How do you access it? And, yeah.
So what I'm feeling from you then, from not even reading your book yet, but what I'm feeling from you is that the book is going to be a real pleasure to read because it brings joy. It brought joy to you to write it, so it's going to bring joy to the listeners as they read it, and maybe some excitement, and you know, maybe give them some hype into doing more things for themselves because of what
Yeah.
you're sharing.
Yeah, it comes from joy, and it comes also from deep pain, you know, the feeling. And what I sensed in my work, and this is part of the reason why I wrote this book, is the sense everyone actually I work with suffers from the same malady. At the core, it's the sense of separation. And you can't resolve that in the mind. That doesn't work. You know, the sense you're disconnected from not just yourself, you disconnected from the animals, you disconnected from each other. You feel it's like something that's taking you over in life. I'm sure you have experienced it, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and there are moments, and there's sometimes days. And this book is really much like, how do you come back into the connectedness? What helps you really to come into the connectedness and then live from that and move in the world from that, and so actually make a difference, just because you're connected to your own beingness and therefore to all of life.
Right.
So yeah, I felt also that what was important to include is the book. In the book was like, you know, there's an overarch of, and there's 4 parts in it. One has the part where it's about life and love itself, you know, the spiritual journey. And then the second part is just really personal. It's for you, loving yourself, finding love, and the third part is about our relationships, because we're pretty messed up in that field in any case. And the fourth part is really, you know, loving Wild Earth, loving humanity, and women rise, and service rocks the world. So there are 4 parts, and then the nice thing is you can read one chapter for a day, and it might be just the chapter you needed. And then the next day you read a chapter that's at the end, and it was exactly that. And so I really wanted it to write like you have a whole menu to a buffet, and you can just choose and pick and feel the different tastes. There's French and there's Italian, and you know.
That's right.
I like that. And I like that you have a choice, like you can kind of move about the book. So as you're, because I think every day we show up differently into the world. And so, sometimes if we can just flip to we want to read about the earth and loving and humanity, maybe that's what our soul needs for that day. And then, tomorrow I might want to read about relationships, or I might want to leave that till the really end because I'm struggling with my own relationship at that point. So I love that you say you can flip around in the book and it kind of all just will play into order for you as you need.
Yeah, like you
good.
said, yeah. Yeah, there's something that it feels then more alive, you can it's something that just you can read with your soul chooses, and that's a whole other way of reading. And in that moment there's a certain transmission that also flows through that might just touch you in the right place, or it might give you a healing balm, or it might wake you up, or you drift into a dream. So
Nice.
that's
So you say that there's some practices. So is there one practice that you can share with us that the listeners maybe could, look forward to reading in the book when they get it?
Yeah, I think right now what comes to mind is like from the chapter Wisdom for Crazy Times. I think right now we are in pretty nutty times. And I feel a lot of people, I don't know if you experience that, but a lot of people not right now are really intensely struggling. And even, those on the spiritual path, you notice the intensity is becoming stronger, and the learning how to ride the waves is one of the key pieces, in this book too. It's kind of really about like, how do we ride through this and not just survive, but actually begin to thrive in the midst of, well, almost, we can say apocalypse, it's that there's something new emerging and the old is dying. So how, and that's always intense. Anybody who's given birth, it's intense. Anybody who has assisted somebody in the death, it's intense. So we are at this threshold time that's both exquisitely beautiful, powerful, and also really tricky. And one of the things that I suggested in the book is, one of the simple practices, like noticing, okay, so if fear comes up, fear is not to be seen as the enemy, because a lot of spirituality focuses on love as the opposite of fear. No, that's not true. Fear, anger, pain, joy, all is contained in that field of love in our humanity. But what we get hung up on is, so there's change coming now, and change comes faster, it seems. And there is a certain level of discomfort because you don't know what's going to happen next. It's kind of like with this dog behind me. I didn't know. So there's the tendency of hold your breath until whatever this thing is that's coming is over. Yeah, until you have for sure survived. So it's just and then we get really tense and we wait, close our eyes and hope this thing passes, whatever it is. So in that fear, you can never tell yourself, oh, don't fear, don't tell that to other people, because it just dismisses what they feel. But what you can do is, in this moment, you can take, if anybody experiences some fear, you can take a fist, make a fist, and really see the fist you're holding your fear grip. Yeah, that's okay. You grip as hard as you can. and then place your other hand underneath. You might want to do this with me. It's really very simple. So first you make the fist, hold it and feel the tension that really goes through your body there. And then take the other hand, put it underneath, and let the other hand fall into your lap. And let the fist settle into the hand that holds it. What happens to your fist?
It gets gentler, more open.
That's it.
Mm.
That's the key to any fear. Find something that actually is holding you, that is as simple as put your body on the earth, touch the earth. And notice this is a fact, she's holding you, because when we have fear, there's no words that really help. But there is something that soothes the nervous system when you just feel, okay, the earth got me.
Yeah.
And nobody has ever fallen off the earth, so far as I know.
I don't think so.
And
No,
then,
I like that because it just shows how simple it is also to release that. It's, I think sometimes we overthink as humans of what the answer is to how to get us out of this fear or this stress or this confusion of what's going on in the world. And so I think that's great that there's something so simple that you could do anywhere. Well, maybe not lay on the ground anywhere, but you can do that. Like if you're working or you're, in a situation, you could just take that second to focus in on.
yeah, and the second thing is, because with fear, you need something simple. You can't get complicated because it's your survival brain. So it has to be simple, it has to be somatic, and it has to be very concrete. And the other concrete thing you can do when you're in that moment of fear is like, not just take a few breaths, but look around in your room right now and notice what object or plant feels actually safe to you. And let your eyes rest on that and let yourself feel that taste of safety. And then take another couple of breaths and breathe out through your mouth. Because what you're doing in that moment, you start shifting from the survival brain into your conscious presencing without fighting the fear. The fear can be here, but what we're doing is like we're making the field wider. So there is not just fear. There's also something that is safe in the room, and there's something that holds you underneath your butt, which is your earth. In that moment, the grip loosens, and then everything starts opening up more. And then you can wonder, what's the right thing to do or the wrong, or what's the path to take. But before that, you're disconnected. You can't take any clear choice, So yeah, so these are things like I had to, because I'm guiding so many people, but also in my own life, there were many actual danger, not just in emotional fear or anything. It was just danger. And I had to really shift into presence.
Right.
Very far. And I had to do it in a simple way. And you cannot jump over the fear because it's going to catch you anyway. You have to just like shift, bring your attention to something that's bigger. And then you're more present, and then the fear isn't such a big problem anymore.
Yeah, and I would agree with that because I think, right, when we're raising children as women or we're working or those things, we don't have that time to, disconnect. And so these simple things I think are really good to tap into because you can connect instantly and then you just got that sense of relief. And then I feel like you can then hear the answers that you're looking for, because when we're in that fear, like you said, or we're gripping, we're not hearing those answers from our higher self or from the universe or whatever you believe in to bring that to you. And, you know, I think with your story with the stag too, shows that having that faith to listen to your higher self and let that love out is really important.
Yeah, yeah. And not fight the fear, but also not succumb. But to let it be there, but bring the bigger mother in. Like the simple, in the simple holding of the fist, you know, that made already. And so for me, it's like, it's so important that we have embodied practices that are, you know, simple enough to navigate when the storms hit, when it's really intense. I mean, there's some stories in the book also on the fire when, you know, we were evacuated and we had to literally run for our lives, and the fire was back just after us. And it was enormous. And yet there was animals and kids and everything. I mean, how do you do that? And so if I hadn't been present enough, that fire would have eaten us alive, you know. So these are things that I feel for this time, that's why it's called How to Rise in a World on the Edge. We need also very, you know, power tools, skills that can help us to grow the capacity so we can actually sail our ship through those tidal waves. Even if you fall off the ship, that you're able to get back on, and also then to sail our ship where, you know, we can land on ground where there is a way that we can also then create a more thriving world that is indeed in a real way loving with each other, you know. So yeah, but I like that picture of the tidal waves and the boat.
Yeah, I think, and that makes sense to me that, you know, this is how we're going through, like, and like you said, to get through it, to not just, you know, be struggling. And I think because we get this fear inside of us, our first instinct is to push back against it and try to, you know, get through it as opposed to riding it and just, you know, figuring it out as we go, and, you know, being more gentle with ourselves. I like that you mentioned too, that you talk about the fire in the book and some real things that I think people can relate to and will be able to draw into their own emotions with that as well.
Yeah, that's for me always been, is important, that it's the stories that are real, you know, and they come from life. They're not just, oh, I imagined a light bulb and a light shining and all that. No, it's like, yeah, we were in the fire. What did you do? How did you connect to the guidance, how to get through the forest fire and find turn right or turn left? Either one could have been deadly. Which path? No, and to learn to have stories that literally show, okay, there is a way, and this is how you can do it as well.
Yes, I'm certain, because in the midst of that, the fire in general, that had to be a scary place for you. And yes, you're trying to, you know, like you said, kids and animals and important things in your life that you're wanting to take with you, right? And it's there and it's so real. I can't imagine what that must have been like for you, as like to deal with that and then to deal with those feelings after the fact when you'd actually processed it and had time to maybe grieve the situation.
Yeah, it was intense. It was extreme. It was, I mean, I experienced it twice, really extreme. But the first time it's well, I had 10 animals and a spiritual center that I was running and a kid and also people that I felt responsible to. And when the knock on the door came, and it was in California. Now, Californian wildfires, anybody who lives there, they're huge, they're humongous. And we get this knock on the door, you know, and we're sitting like happy and just drinking tea. And then comes this bong bong. I open it and the police officer stands there and he said, "Ma'am, you got 5 minutes. Out, fire comes now. Run for your life." And I said, "What?" He said, "I can't repeat it. I have to go to the next one. Get your shit together and get out."
Wow.
And then I looked, I went behind, I thought, oh my God, that fire was almost at our fence. It was so huge. And in that moment, I was like, okay, there's nothing you can think of taking anymore with you. The only thing I was smart enough to is like I had a passport and a computer and a mala, a prayer bead mala, and I just chunked it all into a bag, grabbed my daughter, told her not to worry, and then I knew in that moment, if I don't center myself and connect with all of life, including that fire, we would not make it out of there. There was no way. And in that moment is I was centering and getting really present. And I literally had only seconds because every second counted. But I knew if I come from this connection, it's going to be death. So it was life or death. And I connected with that divine force. And at that moment, it was like, I mean, I had 6 cats, pack up 6 cats and 2 horses and a stubborn donkey who was called Little Buddha. So I just communicated to them. I said, all of you now hop in the car, the cats. And they were like, screaming. I said to my daughter, take the horses, run for your life to the airport field where there were trucks waiting for us to come in. And the donkey was a problem because he was not wise like the Buddha. He stood there like, I'm not moving, it's my home.
You said you will be roast donkey if you don't move.
I said to him, you either move or you're going to be dead. And then at some point he moved and I just did the last thing I did for this land and this place that I loved so much. I just put a circle of protection around it, put a prayer. I said, please, if there's any way to protect this, let it be so. And then I left. The most amazing thing was a week later, I mean, there's so much had burned up on that mountain. The fire had made a ring around our place. Wow. Nothing was burned. Nothing. It was uncanny. Uncanny.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm also thankful for that. But again, it just, coming back to the book and having that love for your place and for the earth and the respect for the fire, I feel like, that said a really big thing, and having that faith helped, I think, in that.
Pulled you all through it, which is beautiful, So what you're saying is believe in yourself and what you can bring forward, and it can happen. And that's a beautiful message.
It was more than just believing in myself. It was like trusting dropping into the presence, dropping into connection and into the heart. And because that was beyond just belief. The belief wouldn't have held me. It was a deep felt sense. I'm connected to the divine. And that if I just put all my trust in it. And at the same time, I had to let go because I couldn't hold on to, oh yeah, my house won't burn just because I have a nice little piece of faith.
Yeah.
It was more like, okay, I walk pulse by minute with that connectedness to the divine, and then I'll be shown. And if my house goes, then it goes, But it is also that allowing yourself to not be as attached
to the material.
In the material. And that's an easy one to do when you don't care about something. But if you care and you bond, which all of us women do very, very much.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
It's like to have bond so deeply and fully, and at the same time to set it free, whether it's a person or a place. And then the divine has a much more freer way to move through you. Yeah, and I think only because I did that at that time that I could help so many that could follow. I suddenly knew where to go and where to drive the truck and everything, because the trees were coming down left and right. It wasn't. It was the level of crazy was like, oh my God.
Terrifying. It sounds terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm grateful that we were unharmed through all that. And others weren't so lucky, but I think there is a different way where we can walk through the intensity that this right now, what's going on in the world, and that will continue on, that we can walk through in a much more connected way. And I think also that the more people do it, the more we can help each other.
You bet. You bet. So where are they? Where can we find your books? Where are they publishing it, or where do they publish it to?
Yeah, it's publisher. It's
Yeah,
Collective.
where can we find the books? Can we buy them? Any bookstore?
Thank you for asking. Actually, in all bookstores, it's available, and it's also on my website, nicolaamadora.com, and on Amazon as well. And if I may ask, if somebody reads a little bit in the book and likes it, leave a review on Amazon.
Yes, that definitely helps writers and people that are trying to get out there. I think that's so important to do for, like, I just think it's so important to leave those reviews when you read those books, because it really does, I think, help out. And, especially if it's, a friendly review would be really lovely.
Yeah. If you don't have a friendly review, you can write personally to me.
Yeah, just email her.
Yeah, and I think also, yeah, for writers, it makes all the difference, honestly. It's these days the whole industry has changed, and we have to, put it forth ourselves. But then I also believe that word of mouth, and also I think the energy of a book speaks by itself. It's like, that's what I think.
Yes, like you said, yours had a soul that called out to you. So I feel like that will be projected through the book when people are reading it.
Yeah.
If you could leave a thought with the followers, what would it be?
I was about to find a little something here in the book, and if I can't find it, I actually read you something very small. Okay.
Yes, please.
It's from the chapter Miracles on the Soles of Your Feet. Yesterday, in the dark and rain, I saw an old man lying crumpled up on the side of a business building in San Francisco. His only shelter was a small rim from the roof that kept him barely out of it. He lay there in a shabby sweatshirt and his pants. I went to my car, got a thick blanket from the back seat, approached him and asked, "Sir, would you like me to cover you with a blanket?" He looked up. He wasn't ill, drunk, or on drugs, and replied, "I apologize if I'm in the way." I kneeled down so he could hear me. "May I put a warm blanket around you?" He nodded and then looked up bewildered. "Is this for real, or am I now going to heaven, ma'am?" I replied, "It's both. It's called human kindness." "Sorry, sir. Sometimes we forget that on earth. Thanks for being in the way so I could pass some on to you. Sweet dreams and good night." He smiled happily, wrapping him in a warm blanket. was such a simple thing to do. It not only warmed his body, but both of our hearts. A miracle so easy to miss on the streets of this world.
That's beautiful. You could just feel the emotion with that. So that was very beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us and with our followers. Very nice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here on the show. It's wonderful that you're doing that.
Yes,
We've-
we appreciate you coming on with us and talking about your book, because I think it's so important for people to know that they have these avenues to look down. And it's one thing Mom and I want to bring with this is having good guests on that can bring this knowledge to people. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. Yes, you want to say something, Mom, Barb.
Maybe later you can come back on and tell us how the reception was from the book, because it does feel really magical, and how the reception was with it, and how the response was it, and what some people have said to you. Maybe there's another book.
Barb, you're already pointing to it. It's true. I mean, I'm getting so many interviews for this book and requests, which it really touches me deeply. But I already have another book inside me, and it's already, I think half of it is already written. So I'm like, I'm telling this book to just get on it, and then comes the next, which is really specifically more for women. That other book.
Good,
Yeah.
great.
So,
Please come on for your next book, okay? Come and let us know about your next book. We'd love to have you.
oh, I'm so honored, really honored, and it's such a pleasure to be with you. And
Yes.
anybody who's listening, thank you very much.
And can you tell everybody where to find you besides your website?
Yeah, actually find me on my website, nicolaamadora.com, and there you find everything. And if you go into a bookstore and they don't have the book, you just tell them to order it.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, and we'll put all of that stuff in the show notes, and hopefully people will write you some nice positive reviews, and you can come back another time and discuss your next book, or like Mom said, how this one, rose up to help people, and some of the feedback that you got from that. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing space with us. We really appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you, everyone. And may the love just continue to grow here.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I agree.
And everybody else, we'll see you on the next podcast.